Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. We're the Movie Couple. I'm Dustin.
I'm Wendy.
And this is our review for Napoleon. Napoleon is directed by Ridley Scott and is a look at the military commander's origins and his swift, ruthless climb to emperor, viewed through the prism of his addictive and often volatile relationship with his wife and one true love, Josephine. Napoleon is a movie that we actually did not do a trailer reaction for. So when I actually started seeing posters and billboards around, I was like, oh, Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon, historical dramatization of a military commander.
Historical biography.
A historical biography of a military commander. I'm like, this smells like Oscar bait to me. And it just had everything that you need for a good Oscar drama. It has a historical figure, it has a lot of amazing costumes, and it has a lot of good battle scenes, and it has an Academy Award winning actor in Joaquin Phoenix.
Yes. Same thing with Dustin. I hadn't watched the trailer for Napoleon just because, growing up, going to school and whatever, you learn about Napoleon in the classrooms. How much, I think that varies depending which school
and also
and what country.
When we were kids, he would pop up in cartoons all over the place as like this small little man. Heck, what is it? Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. They bring in Napoleon Bonaparte.
Yes.
And he's kind of a pop culture historical figure just because he's been in so many things.
And they poke fun at the height. That's
Yes.
That's what they do with a lot of Napoleon in cartoons or whatever, when they reference him, and it's and they also have that saying Napoleon complex or whatever it's called, you know. And the movie first and foremost does not make it a whole thing about his height. He is not remotely that short. There are some scenes where he does look average. So by average, I mean you're not 6'1", 6'2". I don't know how tall Joaquin Phoenix actually is.
I think in history, he started off when he was younger. Napoleon was a small little man, but he grew up to be average size. I think he ended up being 5'6", 5'7", around there.
Yeah, that's average.
Mm-hmm. That's average for the time as well.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
And they never made that an issue in this movie. You know, it's weird. I feel like this movie, Napoleon, was fan service for anyone who is a historical buff on Napoleon. So where we would get, comic book fan service in certain movies, if you are a historian of Napoleon, you're like, oh, I know what this part's going to be. Or the fact that they didn't really poke fun at his height. They were trying to keep it only little mentions of it.
Yeah, and it's mentioned so subtly once by him, and then others not really mentioned, because a character does mention small man. You've seen the trailer, because now we've watched the trailer. But the character was not referencing, at least in my interpretation of it, when I watched it, they were talking about something more figuratively for him as a person rather than his physical appearance.
Yeah, and in this movie, they really do focus on two big things for Napoleon. They really do focus more on his military conquests and on his relationship with Josephine. And they have a little sprinkling of the politics in there, but it's pretty much all of that takes place between either a huge battle or a dramatic scene with his wife. Everything else is kind of okay, we're just going to sprinkle in this information. So if you are not caught up on Napoleon history, you can get lost really fast in this movie going, wait, who, what, how did this, wait, so the revolution just happened, now he's up. If you don't know some of the history, you're not going to get a lot of what's going on in the movie.
Yeah, it's not like an explainer, but at the same time, I don't think they make it super hard to follow. So I feel like with a director like Ridley Scott, he really put in the forefront all the battle scenes in the conquest you were talking about, him as the general, very ambitious one, and what's he doing here, his strategies and war tactics. And that actually, to me, was really interesting to see come to life in a very cinematic manner. So a lot of the battle scenes looked absolutely just stunning. There's one particular, it's in the trailer, so I'm going to refer to it. There's ice in it, that's all I'm going to say. And that is probably the most, it was really interesting because I don't feel like I've seen a battle scene shot like that before, and also
Yeah.
to see the tactic play out. I was like, oh, okay, I see. I think that was really interesting to
That
see.
was the scene that, yeah, really did show Napoleon's military brilliance, to where they really demonstrated just how smart and clever he could be on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And I really liked, that was one of the things that I did enjoy. Where they had moments of showing Napoleon's strategic brilliance.
Yes. And then another thing that the movie touched on was sort of his personality, the way he would speak to people, the way he, what we know about Napoleon, especially kind of like you were referencing to pop culture, is he's very egotistical, very pompous,
Yeah.
very almost arrogant, definitely very ambitious. And they played into all of those in his way of like interacting. I think one of the most interesting part is to watch him being so confident in himself in saying all of this, but then he would kind of like also deliver for the most part when it came to war and military, and then certain figures in politics recognized the kind of pull and power he had. So they wanted to kind of align themselves with him and whatnot. And if you are not sure about the history, then we'll just let you watch the movie and find out. But on the opposite side of that, we also got to see his insecurity, and that came into play when when they showed his relationship with Josephine.
And that is one of the good parts of this movie is his relationship with Josephine, where I feel like everything else kind of falls to the wayside, and certain things kind of get mentioned and then left behind, and then all of the political, like I said before, you can get lost, but it's because they really don't spend much time on anything else.
That's true. Mostly war.
Mostly the war and the battle, and then the relationship. I have to admit, they do a good job on making it a very weird relationship. And there's a lot of times where you're just kind of like, ooh. And they glance over a lot of other things in the movie to where if you really want to learn about Napoleonic history, what you want to do is go back and go onto YouTube and just look up Brief History of Napoleon. And I learned more in a 15-minute video than I did
in a 2-hour and 37-minute movie.
Something that I learned was that Napoleon was very much a dictator. He really does he became an emperor. He, imprisoned a lot of his political adversaries. They glance over a lot of that.
It's like mentioned in passing.
Mentioned in passing, and they do kind of glorify a little bit of what he did militaristically, and what he did with his relationship with his wife.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I, after kind of seeing the movie, it's been a few hours, so, I've had time to kind of like let it simmer in my head. And in the description that you were talking about at the very beginning of this video, saying that, like, it's kind of like a lens, like, through, his, like, addictive and volatile relationship with his wife, Josephine, right? But when it comes to the word, like, addictive, I think he was also addicted to the conquering.
Yes. Oh, very much so.
And he was really ambitious, so I think he was like equal parts kind of split in that, like, I have to do this, I love this country, so I will do everything, to the point where, I think he put his own true feelings aside for stuff. Like I mean, not saying like he was like the best at, you know what I mean, but the movie did get to did show him off in but I am willing to do all of this for the country that I love so much. But he also then kind of sacrificed in other areas, many other areas. The relationship with Josephine I find really interesting, because I think growing up and learning about Napoleon in school, obviously they weren't going to focus on the relationship between Napoleon and Josephine. They would mention he had a wife and main points of the part of the relationship that happened, and then that was kind of it, which it makes sense for a history class.
Yeah.
So in the movie, you get to see how he meets Josephine, what their interaction is like, and it is kind of a really interesting relationship where it feels like it was for love, but also not for love at the same time. And like the two have a really weird understanding of each other.
And then in some ways abusive, in some ways very manipulative, but like codependent of each other. It's really, you're sitting here just going, this is a weird relationship. The fact that, I don't want to go in too much into it, but how they still, even at the end, are still writing letters to each other, are still communicating, and are still a big part of each other's life.
Another thing I wanted to bring up was I feel like a lot of you will know ready to handle this going in because it is, yes, historical biography on a historical figure, but also war movie. So just like, I guess, a fair warning, I'm not sure what this movie is rated. I'm gonna
It's
guess
definitely rated
definitely R. After like the first, like, I think it was 10 minutes, the first 4.
The first time they blow up a horse. So let me put you there just so you know.
Yes,
trigger
yes.
warning on that.
Yeah. So because like I think graphic violence in a war movie is really not uncommon. It's almost expected. But I think the animal cruelty part of it, not animal cruelty, but like, you know what I mean, with when they, harming animals and whatnot, whether it's in war or something else, like I think some audiences need a little trigger warning. So we wanted to give you that before you head in.
So overall, I feel like there are some really good parts of this movie, but there are a lot of things that do kind of drag the movie down. Like for a while I was kind of like, what's the focus of this movie? The pacing is really fast, so if you don't know the history, you're gonna get lost. Overall, I feel like it had good acting, good action scenes, and amazing costumes. With all of that being said, we're going to give this movie our ratings. Our rating system is down in the description box below. Overall, I feel like there is a lot of good, a lot of stuff that's very high drama, very high action with some of the battle scenes. I felt like I got lost a little bit, and there was moments where I was kind of like, wait, what are we trying to focus on here? So I'm going to give this movie a stream it.
For me, as someone who doesn't love war movies, I watch them because, I want to review them and stuff like that. But it's just, a lot of deaths happen and stuff like that. So it's not something I look forward to watching, but I will watch for the art and whatnot. And I will say Napoleon surprised me, as in it kept my interest more than I was expecting. I think a lot has to do with the cinematography from Ridley Scott, the direction. I also think the performances by Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby and everybody else that is in this film are completely captivating. It's very passionate. I feel like I almost saw, like I wasn't watching Joaquin. There were many parts in the movie where I had to remind myself, you're watching Joaquin, because his face would just kind of look so different to me. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed seeing the performances. I do feel like the runtime is a bit long. The pacing got a little weird towards after the second act and into the third. And it finishes good, but for a while there, it was kind of like you were saying, they were trying to focus on, you can tell they were trying to focus on 3 main points. His relationship with Josephine, the war, battles, and the conquering, and his love of France. They were trying to show all 3 all at once, and I feel like it got kind of muddled, and they weren't sure exactly which direction. I think they wanted to show all 3 because it encompasses who Napoleon is. But I feel like the direction in that wasn't so clear on parts of the movie. So I'm going to go ahead and give this movie a matinee. But I will say, if you are a Ridley Scott fan or if you're history fan, you're probably going to either do it for you it'll be a check it out or catch it opening night.
So those are our thoughts on Ridley Scott's Napoleon. Give us your comment in the comment section down below. What did you guys think about it? How much Napoleonic history do you actually know off the top of your head without having to look some of it up? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.